Okay, listen, I've got no excuse, right? Hello everybody, it's been a while. It certainly feels very strange to be doing this again. So this semester kicked my ass and I have not had time to film videos in a while, so finally hit all my deadlines on Tuesday, so that's me done until September. Oh my god, I am so tired, holy shit. But like, in a good way, because it was a fun semester and I got lots of shit done, so yeah. Not that I'm going to be having the summer to myself because we're on our final projects now, so guess who doesn't really get time off. But anywho, we'll actually have time to film videos. So without further ado, I'm going to go over a quick wrap up for March and for April, because the more observant people among you will notice that I did not do a March wrap up. So let's go. The first book I read in March was The Angel of Khan El Khalili, which is the sort of sequel to A Dead Djinn in Cairo. It's sort of the second novella in Lead Up to Master of Djinn by P. Jelly Clark. Now, I loved A Dead Djinn in Cairo. I do have a spoiler-free review for it if you want to see my thoughts on that one. But yes, this one was a really, really good follow-up. Very interestingly, it was in second person point of view, and it was a really great short novella. I did guess the ending though, but like, you know, it was a really, really good thing. Just really, really interesting to read, expanding on the sort of lore of the world, expanding on the sort of, you know, idea about these angels and stuff that you have within the context of the sort of Dead Djinn universe. Really, really just an interesting follow-up. I really, really enjoyed it. It was read really well on audiobook, so again, just cannot recommend it enough. I didn't love it as much as A Dead Djinn in Cairo, partly because you don't follow the same character, and I really, really love Fatma. So really, really excited to get to the haunting of Car 043. I can't remember, there's a 4 in there somewhere. Definitely going to be reading that because I can finally get to Master of Djinn, which I bought a copy for my friend and she has now read it and she keeps messaging me telling me how amazing it is, so I definitely need to get to that book. I then read Commotion of the Caribbean. This was a really, really great story about sort of this girl who wins her freedom from slavery and sort of becomes this kind of pirate, sort of, you know, win back to be able to try and get some money to try and sort of free all her friends and her family and stuff. I really, really enjoyed this book. It's quite short, you know, it was an easy read. Really, really interesting, sort of historical about, you know, about this girl and kind of the life that she leads and how she ends up going into piracy. A lot more realistic as well about what pirates are like. It does not glamorise them, you know, it actually does point out that they do kill people, they do rape people, you know, it's not a very nice profession to be in, and obviously that's something she really struggles with once she kind of gets there. So, you know, I actually really, really liked having that aspect of this, that it wasn't glamorising the lifestyle as much as you see, you know, as much as you're used to kind of because of Hollywood and stuff these days. Absolutely fantastic book. If you're looking for something interesting to read, I definitely would recommend this one because it was really, really different and I really, really enjoyed it. I will give trigger warnings though, obviously, like I said, she escapes from enslavement, so there is historical accurate depictions of enslavement and there's attempted rape and there's murder and stuff like that. You know, there's quite a few trigger warnings for here. I will just give you a heads up about that. But other than that, you know, it is a very, very good book. And then read Warbreaker, which my friend really, really kindly got for me. I really, really enjoyed this one. It was so good. I have only ever really read Mistborn before, so this was my first kind of foray away from Mistborn into somewhere else of the Cosmere. So I really, really enjoyed this. I do hear that there's going to be a sequel, which is going to be really good fun. Definitely can't wait to see how these characters, you know, move forward. I really just really love the sort of two sisters that we follow, as well as this sort of mysterious third character that you don't quite know where he fits in until later on in the book. And I actually really enjoy when you get like multiple point of view characters like that, when you've maybe got one or two that you're just like, how do you fit into this? And then sort of about halfway through you get to find out why and you're like, wow, so cool. So I really, really enjoyed this. Didn't love it as much as I loved Mistborn, but, you know, I think I do also have certain nostalgia for Mistborn because I fucking love it. So, you know, but Warbreaker was really, really great. It's definitely solidified as Brandon Sanderson being one of my favourite authors and stuff, so I'm definitely going to be continuing with more Cosmere. I do have a copy of The Way of Kings, so I'm not sure if I'm going to start on Stormlight Archive yet, or if there's something else I need to read first. Do let me know if you think there's something else I need to read before I start Stormlight. I have heard that perhaps you need to give Elantris a go, but you know, what's a sort of good kind of like reading order for this? Because I'd definitely like to know. Please let me know, but I did really enjoy this. Like I said, loved both our characters. I loved the world building as well, like this whole idea of like colour being magic and stuff, and then like, you know, the place that you know, these two girls come from, you know, how they sort of see the colour as sort of almost like blasphemic and stuff. Yeah, really, really great. I just thought it was really, really interesting. That's one thing I think I love about Brandon Sanderson is all the different like magic systems, so I can't wait to read more and find out what else he's come up with in his time. But yeah, I really, really like Warbreaker. And then read Library of the Dead, and this one was really fun for me, partly just because it's set in Edinburgh, and I did live in Edinburgh for a year, so it was just really fun just to be like, oh, I know what they're talking about. But again, really interesting world building because it's almost like Edinburgh, but sort of, you know, near future almost, and there's been some kind of like war, and you know, just it's just interesting, like, you know, how they kind of got all this stuff going on. And you've also got like this you got our main character who is really, really fun to follow, and like, you know, her magic and her ability to kind of like speak to ghosts and stuff, how she fits into the world, how other people view her, you know, how ghost, like, you know, mediums and stuff almost have to have like licenses and stuff, and how that magic kind of is like treated, as well as then what kind of when you find out about the Library of the Dead, you know, what's going on there. It was a weird one for me. Like, I didn't love this book, to be honest, because it was very strange, especially when, you know, you get to the house and you get to, like, you know, if you don't know what the premise of this book is, basically she gets hired by this dead woman whose son has gone missing, and basically, you know, this lady's like, no, you need to find my son for me, like, you know, and then I'll stop haunting you, basically. So yeah, and she's kind of like following all these different clues and stuff, and she's got this friend who works at this mysterious library, and yeah, just interesting sort of stuff. Really, really great world building. I did really like the writing style. I did really like sort of our main character, but overall the plot was just a little weird. In a sort of like, you know, it was just a bit strange in the way that it went, and I was like, I'm not sure if I'm enjoying this, but like I was enjoying it. You know, bit of an odd one, definitely enjoyed it, but like, you know, wouldn't be one I'd go back to in a hurry. Then got to Empress of Flames, which is the sequel to The Girl King, which is a book that I just found in a charity shop, and I just kind of picked up, and I actually absolutely fell in love with it. It was just such good fun, and I really, really enjoyed this sort of idea of these two sisters kind of against each other for the throne in a world, in a sort of country where, you know, women don't usually inherit. You know, I really, really enjoyed this first book, and the second book is actually a really, really good sequel, whilst it did kind of, you know, fall victim to kind of the similar criticisms I had for the first book. You know, sometimes, you know, plot points weren't really given enough time to breathe, some of the writing was a little bit naive, some of the character like developments happened a little too quickly. It was still a really, really good follow-up, and I thought it was a really, really great way to expand this sisterhood and this rivalry. And I actually really like the direction that she went with this, with like the rivalry between the two sisters. It didn't really go where I thought it was going to, but I really liked the way that it did go and why that happened. And while some of the sort of stuff that you kind of find out about this character who has died in the past, and you kind of see things from her point of view every now and again, I didn't really feel was necessary, to be honest. It did add some interesting context and stuff to kind of the stuff that you see, and like why the political landscape is the way that it is now for all these things to be happening to these girls. Again, though, like I said, a lot of stuff just felt really rushed. It felt like, oh, we're going to do one thing. Wait, no, we're going to do this thing now. And you're just like, oh, okay, I don't know what's going on anymore. But no, really, really great. I can't believe how this ended as well. Like, I was not expecting that ending. Holy shit. I sort of like sat right up. I was like, oh, okay, this is where we're going with this one. So I really, really did like the sequel. Really, really great duology. If you're looking for something easy to read and something a bit different, like I said, not the most amazing thing I've read in my life, but definitely really, really enjoyed it. I would recommend it to anybody who sort of likes kind of this sort of story. Like I said, the sort of two sisters and kind of their relationship is so core to this duology, and I just really, really liked the focus that this book had on them. And then finally I got to read The Genesis Wars, which is the sequel to The Infinity Courts, which is one of my favourite books of all time. I do have a reasons why you should read The Infinity Courts, and for those of you who read the book, I also do have a spoilery sort of discussion from a year ago, back when I first read it. So if you want to go see what my thoughts were back then, definitely go have a check out. But if you haven't read the book, there's also a spoiler-free thing, so, you know, have a look at that as well. But yeah, oh, this was such a good sequel. Now, it was not as amazing as The Infinity Courts, I will say that. It did suffer from a little bit of second book syndrome, but it was still a 4 stars for me. Like, you know, I still really enjoyed it. I liked the kind of developments of what happened. I liked that we got to see more of the different courts within Infinity. I liked where Nami's character went in this. I did feel that sort of some of the plot twists from the end of the last book kind of not fell short, but just didn't quite have the impact in this book that I was expecting them to. The first one being kind of, you know, where Nami ends up at the end of the last book. You know, that kind of almost felt a little too, oh, okay, so that's what this is. It was just a bit strange and a little bit kind of, not from nowhere, but I just didn't, it just felt so strange to be reading about that place and what was happening there, because I guess I just couldn't almost connect that with what we'd seen from the rest of Infinity in the first book, and especially when even when Nami goes back, you know, to know that that place is still there is just still a little bit like, okay, what? But you know, still really interesting connotations, and I like the kind of stuff that we learned there, and like, you know, some of the stuff going on there. God, trying to talk about this without giving you spoilers is interesting. You know, there's lots of things and places and stuff. So sorry, I'll try better to explain what this is about. But yeah, but then once we were back in Infinity, I kind of liked what we saw there. I kind of liked the characters that we kind of got to see. Because we're seeing completely different characters this time. I liked this kind of like, you know, we saw some of the old characters from last book, but you know, this was mostly a new cast that we dealt with this book, which I do feel almost like detracted a little bit because you got very attached to the characters you did see in the last book, and I felt like we just didn't quite get enough time with them in this book for the ones that did show up. And then also, you know, there's that other plot twist that happens at the end of the last book, and I feel like there's a certain development with a certain character in this book, which is interesting, but I do feel that it kind of came a little bit out of, not nowhere, but it feels like this character development has happened between these two books, and you as the reader are only just learning about this development in this book. You're not actually seeing it happen, and I kind of wish we could have seen that happen. Because one thing I loved about the last book was Nami talking to these AI characters and talking to them about, you know, she's trying to be a pacifist, she's trying to make that bridge, she's trying to find peace in this war. So I feel like with what happens with the character in this book, they could have gone a similar route for that, of actually Nami almost being the more driving force as to why that character becomes the way that they do. And especially as well, this other revelation that you kind of get really does feel out of nowhere, because he's already found this out, and he's just kind of telling you about it, and you're like, okay, this feels like a much bigger revelation for us to just hear from someone else's point of view as they tell another character about it. You know, I kind of wish that Nami had been the one to discover it and kind of, you know, have a little bit more to do with that. But it has interesting implications for what's going to happen next. As well as the ending for this, I thought it was going to end, and then, you know, there's a certain point in this book where you think, oh, okay, that's the end, God, I'm going to have to wait till the next book, and then there's like just a little bit of chapter left. I kind of, whilst I like the cliffhanger that this left on, because that's a good cliffhanger, that's a very good cliffhanger, I do almost feel like, you know, a few pages before would have been a good one, but you know, very interesting implications for the end of this book. I had literally just been thinking, are we going to see this particular character show up at some point in this trilogy? Let's find out. There's one character that I did want to see show up, sadly hasn't, which is a shame because I really thought that was going to be a thing, but sadly it isn't, which is a shame because like that would be interesting fan fiction for someone to write if this one character came back. But, you know, like I said, trying to talk about this with it, like giving spoilers is really interesting. But yeah, you know, just really, really great. It's a really solid follow-up. I really like the stuff that it expands on. I really like the stuff that it introduces. I do feel like a few things were just like not revealed in the way that I wanted them to be, and not developed in the way that I'd like to see developed. But that is really personal taste at the end of the day. The writing's still fantastic, the characterization is still fantastic, the kind of like morals and themes of this book are still really, really great. So yep, I still highly recommend this series to anyone who wants to read it. I cannot wait for the last book just to find out exactly where this is all going. It's just really, really brilliant, and I really, really enjoyed it. You know, I had really high expectations and I feel like it hit those. But that's everything I read in March and April, so, you know, I barely had time to really read anything, so I'm definitely looking forward to reading a lot more now that I've got a lot more time. I'm actually going to be going away for a few days next week, so I'm actually really looking forward to actually just bringing a stack of books with me and seeing how many of those I can get through. So yeah, it's definitely going to be reading more, so definitely stay tuned as well for more videos. You know, this is me back to my usual filming schedule. I'll be posting reviews for a lot of these books. I'll be posting, like, you know, back to book tags and other videos and stuff. So yeah, hopefully back to normal scheduling now that I am free from uni until September. But what did you read in March and April? Have you read any of the books I've mentioned here? What did you think of them? Let me know down below in the comments. I would absolutely love to hear from you. Feel free to subscribe. Like I said, that's me back to a regular schedule, so you should actually get some more interesting videos. Feel free to like, and like I said, please feel free to comment, start a little chat. I have really, really missed talking to you guys. But thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.